Uh, you all know who bought La Voiture Noire, no? It's like a semi-open secret. But the whole world has not spotted that there's a clear link to who the owner is of this car. First of all, this is the chassis number that we're referring this project to. This was the Atlantic, the famous Black Atlantic chassis number 453 in the ending. But more importantly, this is Ferdinand Karl here, 17th of April, 37. So this we also forwarded when it was his birthday. I wrote a little handwritten letter and I sent him this video one more time, and I made him aware that that there's a little giveaway. We call this an Easter egg when you have this in the video hidden. Nobody had picked up on it, but it was certainly hidden there. So this explains a little bit that Bugatti is not just about the success of Type 35 racing in the 1920s. It is also about the sheer ostentatious meaning of cars like the 41 Royale, you know, in its size and what it meant compared to Rolls-Royce at the time. It was a car that was 3 times more expensive than any Rolls-Royce on the market. And it's also about ultimate grand touring, which this car was seen as a symbol at the time, and which actually is a bridge to our car today. We speak of the Chiron really as the ultimate GT, which we're going to come to in a moment. Just to maybe show how it all came to an end. Tragically, Jean Bugatti was killed testing one of his race cars. He was never allowed to race from his father's side, but he was damn quick. At the time, it was normal procedure that cars were delivered from here to Paris by wheel. You know, they were driving the cars. And it was very often Jean Bugatti driving, and the other drivers were the Grand Prix pilots, so you can imagine what was going on. They were always racing from here to Paris and who could get there faster. And Jean Bugatti was good. People like Costantini and Vimil, they all said he was quick. But there was a tragic accident testing the car here in the neighborhood, and only 6 weeks later, after he had this accident and passed away, the World War II started. Then a couple of months later, the Germans invaded the Alsace region. Sorry for this harsh drawing. Then Carlo Bugatti, the father of Ettore, died. Then some years later, his wife Barbara died, and then in 47, Ettore himself died. And he did not even live to see that the French government gave him back his company, which was not so easy. You know, being born Italian and Italy being on the wrong side of the fence in the war, you know, try to get back your company from the French government if you fought on the wrong side of the war, which he didn't, but Italy did. And that's why it was difficult, and tragically he did not even live to see that the French government gave him back his company in 1947. So this is the tragic end of the Bugatti era. There was a little bit of activity with the younger son, but the younger son did not really have the fortune as Jean Bugatti. So by the mid-end of the 50s, it was really over. And then we're faced with this gap. No? And we think a big part of this gap survived very well thanks to the Bugatti Trust in England. Why? England is a motorsport country, and obviously they were cherishing motorsport heritage from Bugatti, and they kept it going. And there are so many documents, and if we need special pictures today, we're still calling the Bugatti Trust if they maybe have a picture for us and if we can borrow it. And then of course the Schlumpf collection. The Schlumpf brothers buying everything in the 50s, 60s and 70s, everything Bugatti that they could get their hands on. And at that time, Bugattis were relatively cheap. Everybody thought, okay, that's the end of the company, and you know, nobody saw really the value of those cars. They collected so many cars, and if you ever go to the Schlumpf Museum down in Mulhouse, there are so many Bugattis down there. And now if you consider how much Bugatti was raising in value over the last decades, you get an idea about the value that sits in this museum that by now is owned by the French government. But let's speak about this era, the 90s. What was going on there? This was the first attempt to bring back Bugatti, the name Bugatti, the brand Bugatti, to modern day life. This was initiated by a certain Romano Artioli, an Italian industrialist, extremely successful at the time, importing Suzuki exclusively to Europe, half of the port in Genoa, but also owning the Lotus brand, for example. And he wanted to really create, from the bottom of his heart, a new super sports car, and it certainly was a development from scratch. Not only the building in Campo Galliano was developed from scratch, and it's a state-of-the-art, wonderful building that you can still look at today. It's almost like an automotive Pompeii. When he went bankrupt in '95, it was never touched since then, and if you ever have a chance to go there, you should go and see this building. It's like frozen in time, because the people who left the building, they thought they would come back a couple of months later, but they didn't. And the car itself as well, it was state-of-the-art. A certain Michael Schumacher also made a special choice for this car. There is a famous, Herr Ostmann is here somewhere now. There was a famous, test at the time. I don't know if you remember this. It might have been Autobild or Automotorsport, I don't remember. Where the supercars of the time, a Lotus Esprit, I think, a Porsche Turbo, also a Jaguar 220, and an F40 were tested, and an EV110. And it was normal procedure that companies would prepare those cars for that test. You know, that they would arrive at their test really as very special cars, and the journalists would drive those cars. In this case, it was Michael Schumacher that was hired to test these cars on the weekend. The problem was there was no EV110 available, so they called Romano Artioli if he would have a car. He said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a car. But you know what, I can call a client in the south of Germany, and he would maybe just borrow his car if you want to." So it was a normal, standard EV110 that was given to Michael Schumacher. At the end of the day, Michael Schumacher said, "I need this car. This is by far the best car of this whole lineup. I need to have it." And sure enough, a couple of months later, he bought a yellow EV110 SS with a GT interior, one of the most valuable 110s that you can find on the market today. You know that this project was the origin and the base of the show car that we did, that you can see outside here, that we just presented in Pebble Beach this year. And we had also presented, just in the days before the unveiling, a small teaser. One little detail. We saw the person with a little tractor in the movie coming here from the left. This is father and son Pavesi, Ezio and Enrico Pavesi. They are the caretakers of this building. They were in the time, in the 90s, and they live in the neighborhood and they still look after that building. Totally charming. That's why we also have a silent launch of the project. But they're both here, and I really would like to applaud you for looking after the history. We are welcoming the EV110 into our history, so it becomes a trilogy. You know, it becomes EV110, Nero, and then Giro. This is our own holy trinity, so to say. But you all know that the company had to fold in 1995, and also the study of a four-door limousine, which was actually, for the time being, a very modern car, a very nicely styled car that we quite admired from a design side, but all that came too late. The company then went under, only to come to the next chapter, which was in 1998, when the Volkswagen Group, as you all know, acquired the rights to the name Bugatti. And we started a new chapter of the modern day Bugatti interpretation. And this is all due to Ferdinand Piëch, as you all know. Without him, we would not be here at all, none of us. brings us to the present. And before I show you the next slide, what you're going to see, is the heart and soul of everything else to follow. All the other slides, all the next 25 slides, are linked to this one picture that I'm going to show you now. This is the ultimate, whatever USP that a Bugatti has of modern day times. It is the base of this engine, and not only that, it came also with a request of Mr. Piech at the time that this car was supposed to have minimum 1,000 horsepower, to run faster than 400 kilometers per hour, to have enormous amount of torque, and if you have so much torque, you pretty much have to deliver all the forces to four wheels, so you need a four-wheel drive in this car just to transfer that power to the road. And on top of it, to put the cherry on the cake, you had to be able to drive this car in style, in all sovereignty, in front of the opera as well. So difficult enough. It took 7 years to really develop this car into production, as you all know. But everything was focused and based around this engine. And I have to give that to Gregor Gries and his team. This is still today the thing that makes the car. You know, we can do as much styling and talking as we want to. That makes the car ultimately. And with the record that we drove, you know, with a team from Stefan Elrod, who's over there, and with the success that we had yesterday, showing that to the clients, I think that speaks again for this engine. Everybody working in the engine department, in our engine department, chapeau, and I don't get tired of saying that. But one thing was also very clear, and this was true for the Veyron already, and for the Chiron as well. This car would never, ever be a race car for the road. Not comparable to these cars, which are race cars for the road, more or less. No? True for the Veyron and also true for the Chiron when it was developed. So we really started in 2004 when I joined Bugatti. We started to think about how can we position this car. It has to be in its own segment, in its own bubble, and that's where it is today. The Chiron lives in its own segment, away from the hypercar segment. And this is wonderful and great like this. We have our cherished customers in this bubble, and we started to really formulate how this world looks like, you know. What makes these cars special? What makes them different from every Ferrari, from every McLaren, from every Porsche? How does it create its own DNA? And let's go through this a little bit. We started to define this car as the ultimate Gran Turismo. We have talked about this a little bit. It is this intriguing mixture of beauty and beast. And you all know that you can drive, there I see Heiko there, you know best, you can drive this car like a Golf R through Wolfsburg, totally calm, sovereign, not very loud, but there's a moment where you can let the beast out of this car, and then there is no holding back, like there is no tomorrow. It just doesn't end. And there are so many other cars, supercars, you run towards 320, 330, and then it gets kind of buoy, and the wind holds you back. Not with this car. It goes 320, 330, 340, 50, 60, and there's always pressure in the seat. This is something that you don't experience in any other hypercar or car, period. And this is the magic of the Chiron, this ambivalence between those two characters. Nobody else gives that to you. And we started in 2004 or 2005 to really nurture Molsheim, to take care of Molsheim, to make Molsheim an overall experience. And my God, what a beautiful, romantic place it is. There's no place, no automotive place on earth that is comparable to Molsheim. And I think you can see and you can feel and you can smell it when you walk around here how special this place is, where we look after our clients, we invite them, we spend a whole day with them, we configure cars, but we also make them familiar with our vintage automobiles, with Bugatti history, what Bugatti was all about, similar speeches that you see here giving to you today. Up to the modern production atelier, everything on this side of the wall is historic, on the other side of the wall everything is modern in terms of building style and operation. This is Christophe Pierchon's grand magic, working and producing on manufacturing and assembling modern day Chirons piece by piece, 2 cars per week at the moment. And this is what clients really appreciate about us here being based in Molsheim and what it means really to have our operation being housed here. For clients that are used to normally individually configure their yachts, their airplanes, their private real estate, it is totally normal that they would like to have something individual. And that's why we started with the individualization at the time on the base of the Veyron. We didn't change cars completely, we were not allowed to, but we did everything that we could to make individual projects, not cookie cutter approaches, but creating cars that had individual charm with it. Or we are also trying to position our brand next to other brands in other industries. Like if you imagine Hermes being on the pyramid top of the fashion industry, we wanted to position Bugatti on the top of the automotive industry. That's why we did collaboration and co-creation projects like this one, the Hermes edition. And with a similar strategy, we also work together with renowned artists like Bernard Venet in this case. The stylistic DNA, I mean, I could speak 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 weeks about this, but I gave these presentations many times, so I won't spend so much time on it, other than just saying that lines like this look like a stylistic line, but they're actually a performance line. And this very authentic, technically driven DNA, as you know, the effectiveness of this air intake down here, I would maybe label that between 50-60%. The effectiveness of this air intake is almost 90% due to the pressure that we have laying around here at the window. That explains the function of this line, not being a stylistic line, but being a performance line. Whenever I, as a designer, have the chance to base our stylistic DNA, our stylistic key items, onto something that is rooted and based in technology, that's always the most honest way how to design a car. And of course, two-tone development available to our customers, and certain DNA features that come over from the past. As a designer, we always say, in order to look forward, you first have to look back and understand the past. It's something that I would like to point out. Yesterday, that was more important to point out. You all pretty much know this, but everything that you see on the Chiron, but also on the Veyron, inside and outside, exterior and interior, is a philosophy that we call what you see is what you get. Everything that you touch that feels like metal is real metal. It's not a plastic part being coated or foil over it or galvanized. It is the real deal coming from somewhere from a solid block of aluminium prefabricated. And there's a friend and good journalist colleague that I admire a lot for his work that says something about the build quality and the quality of Bugattis, of modern day Bugattis.
Let's start again. Just an engine. Not start, stop, just engine. Before we go, I just want to say something about this car, because I know it costs £2.5 million. But the thing is always really hard to get across in a video. The thing I can't tell you, really without you being in here and being able to touch everything, is just the tactility of everything. It feels like that much money in all the controls. It might look like this is effectively lifted from an R8, albeit machined from one piece of billet aluminium and all that, but the switch down here, so oily. It's just, you won't feel a switch like it in any other car.
From the vents to the gear selector to the stitching on the leather, the Bugatti has a depth of quality to the materials behind each click, slide, push or rotation that can never be fully conveyed simply by sight alone. You really need to feel it. Consider for a moment a Michelin-starred plate of food on a television screen. However beautifully arranged it is on a plate and however well you might think you know the individual ingredients, it's only by actually tasting it that you can understand the true magic inherent in it. And so it is with the Chiron. Although, however much you like the Bugatti, I wouldn't actually advocate licking it.
This was Henry Catchbolt, by the way, really gifted automotive journalist. How I find the color blue. When we arrived 2004, 5, 6, we had to do something about the identification for Bugatti, and that had to be the color blue to bring that back from the racing history. Now, to tell you in all honesty, there is no French racing blue. Like there is no British racing green that you can pinpoint. Nobody can really say what in the 1920s French racing blue was by a Pantone color, because that's not the way how it was done. It was just light blue, you know, or dark green. And they used whatever was available. At Bugatti, the myth has it that the blue, whenever the Gauloise blue was changing, also the blue of Bugatti was changing. And Barbara Bugatti was smoking Gauloise the whole time. But we did our best. And you know, Jörg Grumer, running the color and trim department, started all that we had to define our blues so that we could provide blues for the customer. We created blues that were on the colder side, on the warmer side, on the reddish side, on the bluish side, going towards turquoise, going towards violet, in different ranges. That was necessary to bring that back and then also to roll that out onto our whole communication. And we do that now tirelessly since 2007, over and over and over again. And by now we are identified with that color. It took probably more than 10 years to really bring that point home. And not only for cars and communication, also the way how we present ourselves on fairs, on public displays, and that also that it relates to our form philosophy and our shapes. And this is a last video, and I'm almost through now with the presentation. This brings us into modern day times, and to just to show what this car really does to people. I put together a couple of minutes of journalist reactions. And it starts with a quote from Jeremy Clarkson, formerly at Top Gear, but now with the Grand Tour show. And he compares this car simply to the Concorde, which there is some relevance to that really. What Bugatti achieves with the Veyron and the Chiron is, in my eyes, sometimes comparable what the Concorde meant at the time. So it starts with a quote from him, "It is like Concorde."
But think about it. This is a 1,479 horsepower, 261 mile an hour rocket ship. It is engineering taken to the max and then some. It's like Concorde. Anyone in the sky in the 1960s who was doing twice the speed of sound was wearing the G suit. But on Concorde they were doing twice the speed of sound while wearing a lounge suit, sipping from a glass of Chateau Margaux. That was the brilliance of Concorde. It was right at the edge of what was technically possible, but it felt normal. And that's what the Bugatti's doing here.
I love that they've gone that extra mile to create this car. It's just just not always give us the family.
All of those cars prepared you for the feeling you get when you first configure down this thing. It is insanely rapid. And when it comes to speed, it has no equals. You can talk about which one of the McLaren, the Ferrari, the Porsche you would buy, but you don't with the Chiron. You either buy a Chiron or no Chiron. There is no competition.
Well, I think that explains pretty well how Bugatti lives in its own bubble, in its own segment successfully with 350 to 400 cherished clients. So this is the last slide, maybe two words on the final side. Where we are today, for a designer it is important that, especially for Bugatti, that we create long-lasting products. You know, my art teacher at university always used to say, well boy, it looks very much at the moment, but I wonder how it looks like when the moment has passed. And that always reminds me, our cars should not look only valuable and attractive in 3 years' time, but also in 50 years' time, when they sit in Pebble Beach on the lawn. And it's impossible to design a car that looks modern in 50 years. That's not possible, that's clear. The important aspect is they need to look authentic. You know, they need to stand for that time, and they need to stand for Bugatti, be unique, immediately identifiable as a Bugatti, but also the form language has to be calm and concentrate on some essential values in the design, so that everything else can go back into calmness, and that is the secret to create long-lasting products. And secondly, I'm not allowed really to speak about the future. But you see that we showed a real tribute and the meaning of our past icons with this car and with this car, and this is only my personal feeling that I have. We have not really touched this car. But coming back to the beginning of this speech, the Chiron is not this car. You cannot make a Type 35 out of a Chiron. That car just doesn't lend itself to go racing. But it would be my dream, and this is my dream since 2004, by the way. It has never happened so far. To produce a car, that we would have a car that we can go racing with again, you know, that is under 1,000 kilograms. Something like a Type 35 is still my personal dream, and it's something that would fit very much to what made Bugatti successful in the 1920s, and a lot of enthusiasts are coming from that direction, but this has nothing to do with the Chiron product. I'm perfectly aware of that. That wraps it up. Thank you very much for the patience. It almost took 40 minutes or longer.